Good afternoon or evening, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to another special Belarus Premier League edition of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm joined by Jonathan Hibberd today, as I have been for all of the Belarus specials so far. However, today we have another special guest joining us. We have Ed Zelaski, who has been following the Belarus Premier League not just this season, but actually for a few years. And, we're going to kind of get a little bit deeper into some of the big matchups. Of course, there was the big BATE versus Shakhtyor game that happened this weekend. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit. But first, welcome to the show, Ed. Thank you for coming on. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me. So I've been interested in the Belarusian league for a while. Part of it goes just to my general interest in that part of the world. I have Polish heritage, so I've always been interested in that kind of Central European, Eastern European leagues. But I first really got my interest piqued watching Alex Hleb playing at Stuttgart on the really good Stuttgart teams about 15, 17 years ago now. And so I know that he developed at BATE. So then I got interested in BATE. And then I remember watching them qualify for the Champions League multiple times and remember watching them beating Bayern. But then I started following Isloch Minsk. I used to do a podcast with a couple of friends a few years ago. And part of that, we decided to do a football manager challenge where we were going to see who could be the first to beat BATE. And I picked Isloch. And so it's just gone from there. I think that was back in 2015. So that was 5 years ago. Yeah.
And how did you get hold of an Isloch shirt? Because you're the only person I knew up until this year who owned one.
That was me just scouring eBay. And I think there was a seller that I had been following because he's had a bunch of different Belarusian shirts. And I got an email that, he'd put more items up for sale, and I immediately made an offer.
Cool, because we had to wait a long time for ours.
I got contacted by the team's official Twitter yesterday and actually ordered a scarf. So I do know that some of that stuff is starting to be made available, and so I'm excited to get my Isloch scarf in. I got that.
Yeah, well, before the season started, Tribuna, one of the big Belarusian sport newspapers, sport, journalism publications, actually did an article on the different merchandise that all of the teams in the Premier League sell. So now I don't think they expected everything to blow up because, none of the teams really sold replica shirts or anything. There's so much money that it takes to actually have them available to sell. So I hope they've been able to make some money off of this.
Yeah, I was thinking that it's a bit of a risky enterprise for them because in Belarus, or Eastern Europe, it isn't really that culture of buying the replica shirt, even of big successful teams.
Yeah, now speaking of big successful teams, I know that the match that everybody had their eye on last week was number one versus number two. And, if you haven't been following this that closely, we probably want to kind of preface this by letting folks know that BATE Borisov is the team that's kind of the PSG or Bayern Munich of the Belarusian league, if you will. And then on it was Sunday, they matched up with Shakhtyor, who has been the second team in the table. They've been kind of the hottest team in the league. They actually jumped out to an early 1-0 lead. It looked like Shakhtyor might actually be jumping all the way to the top of the table, but then when the dust settled, that one finished up 2-2. And now we have BATE sitting on top of the table, 27 points. Shakhtyor 2 points behind them at 25. I'm imagining both of you guys were following that match pretty closely.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you can see that we've clearly got a title race in Belarus at the moment. We're, I don't know what percent of the way through, but And it's roughly along the lines. I mean, the very first Belarus podcast we did, we looked at the teams that spend the most money. And 3 of those 4 teams are the top 3 now. And of course, Dynamo Minsk is like conspicuous by its absence. And we've discussed some of the problems that they have. But it was a really competitive game. But I think the big talking point that came out of it, and I noticed that the Belarusian commentators were talking about it in as much as I understand what they're saying, that the fact that they don't have VAR kind of sticks out like a sore thumb now. We were saying how much we quite like them not having VAR, but I think this would have been a very different game if there hadn't been VAR, because at 1-1, there was a handball incident in the Shakhtyor box, basically. So BATE should have had a penalty, and BATE then scored from the resulting corner anyway. But Shakhtyor's equaliser, I don't know if you saw it, but basically one of the Shakhtyor guys has gone in on the goalkeeper with both, with studs showing. And then it fell to another guy. And even when it went in and the Shakhtyor players started to celebrate, I mean, possibly an analogy that might be lost on you guys. It's a bit like in England where we have cricket. And, if you think you've got a wicket in cricket, you have to celebrate as if it is, and then maybe the umpire will say that it isn't. But, it was one of those. So they were sort of celebrating because they know they should, because they want the goal to be counted. But actually, I think most people at the end agreed that, if there were VAR, there's no way that goal would have stood.
I think that maybe the closest analogy we could get in the U.S. would be in baseball when an outfielder makes a diving catch and kind of has to hold the ball up and show the umpire that he caught it, whether it hit the ground first or not. He needs to at least make it look like he caught it, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So it's like claiming it.
Yeah. But I think,
so Ed, what were your thoughts on watching that game?
No, that I think that pretty much echoes it. It's just exciting to see, and we're 13 matches in, so we're almost halfway. It's exciting to see that there is some sort of a title race. I know Shakhtyor have always been the team that have always been around the top, but they've never been able to really get there. They're always second or third. And, it's the rotating table of who is there, whether now it's Dynamo Brest or if it's Dynamo Minsk or somebody else. But it's just, I think, at least a nice advertisement for the league. I like VAR. I follow the Polish Ekstraklasa and they use it there, and I think it can be used well. I watch the Bundesliga and I think it's used well. So I know the way that it's been used in England, I think, has been fairly ridiculous.
Yeah. Well,
and
this
I think
is
they're
it.
kind of missing the point.
I would say that out of the leagues that I watch League One where they don't have VAR. I watch the USL over here where they don't have VAR, and then the Premier League where it's just been a disaster. So I've generally been anti-VAR, but I mean, certainly it's one of those things where you don't like it until the call goes against your team. I mean, to me, what I hate about it is that it kind of ruins that ability to score a goal, run in, grab the ball out of the net, run back to mid, kind of it's just taken away, and to me that's one of the beauties of the game is when you're down late by 2, you get a late goal and just that excitement of running and grabbing the ball out of the net, running back to midfield to try and get going again. I hate not seeing that be able to happen anymore.
Yeah, but I do agree. I mean, because I follow the Ekstraklasa now and then, and I do agree with what Ed said, that it seems to work better there. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but they seem to have just found a sensible way of doing it. So,
I would say that in the World Cup, it seemed to work. I don't know that the Premier League just can't quite seem to get it right. But we've talked a lot about BATE and Shakhtyor. There was quite a few other interesting things that happened. I think the second most interesting thing probably happened at the very bottom of the table, didn't it, Jonathan?
Yeah, definitely. We talked about me having this betting tip a couple of weeks ago that Belshina would pick off one of those struggling teams. I think it was Slavia. And that looked a good bet at 2-0. And then, of course, they lost 3-2. So there's no way I expected Belshina to go to, one of the, form teams of the season, energetic, and pick up a win. But, looking through the game, a lot of things went for them. I mean, they came out of the blocks, start of the second half, and more or less, certainly as we'd say in England, energetic were caught napping, So, and just a lot of things went for them. I think energetic had a disallowed goal. They hit the crossbar. They were doing a lot of the right things. Yakshaboev is not firing for them quite as he was at the start of the season. So I don't know if you've picked up, there's actually the energetic English language Twitter account. And some of the guys are doing a podcast now only about energetic. So if you really want to know chapter and verse of what's going on with them, you can check that out. But they're a bit kind of miffed that Yakshaboev is not quite firing now.
Yeah, I mean, they seem like they've started struggling over the past few weeks. Over the last 3 games, they're 2 losses and a draw. A team that we talked about that was struggling earlier, that seems to be finding form with 4 wins in a row now, is Neiman. What have you guys seen out of Neiman, and what do you guys think has been the key to their turnaround?
They figured out how to score goals. They've really just turned it on the past few weeks, and I'll be honest, I didn't expect it. I didn't think they would be as bad as they had. They, came up against Smolovici. They are one of the worst teams in the league, and I know they've had some money problems as well. But man, I think they're finally putting everything together, and they look like a very strong team. And they're up to, 6th in the table. They still have a game in hand, but if they win that, they're up to 3rd.
Yeah, that's what I noticed is with the game in hand, if they won that would only put them 4 points behind BATE.
Yeah, I think Neyman, they were a perplexing team in a way because they were doing some of the right things. And, certainly they've got one of the stars of the league in Kadimian. I tended to feel that they were, emotionally I'm attached to them for reasons we've discussed like in the past, but I tended to think they might turn a corner. But yeah, this is really, really impressive form now.
Yeah, and then also Dynamo Brest, they're on a nice runway with 3 wins in a row. They're up to 3rd in the table. So what we have is BATE at 27 points, Shakhtyor at 25, 3 teams at 22, which are Dynamo Brest, Torpedo, and Energetic, and then Neiman at 20 with the game in hand. So realistically, from what I'm looking at, there's really 6 teams that are kind of still in it in terms of the title race. Would you guys agree that all 6 of those teams could still have a say in things?
Well, if you ask David Toy from Energetic, he said today that they have a real shot at going on in winning the title. I think that was either with Pressball or Tribuna. Ultimately, I think it'll be BATE, Shakhtyor, or Dynamo Brest.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
The goal differences seem to point to that because those 3 teams are not only top 3 of the table, like Jonathan mentioned, they kind of have the larger budget. They're also plus 10 or more in goal difference. If you look at Energetic, they're only plus 2. And there really is kind of a separation from 7th on up, where you see even Dynamo Minsk, they're in 7th at 19 points. They're plus 6 on goal difference. And then if you move down to Isloch, they are also on 19 points, but then they're a -3 in goal difference. So it's basically everybody from 7 on up is on the plus side. Everybody from 8th on down is on the minus side. So, from what I'm looking at it kind of seems like maybe that's the dividing line of the table right now.
Yeah, it is really interesting what Energetic are trying to do. That they are kind of openly trying to have a shot at the league, but they know they don't have the big bucks, so they're trying to do it maybe sort of a Moneyball kind of mentality, really. They're trying to kind of think smart about how they can sort of maximize their resources and do as well as they can. And obviously, if they pulled that off, that would be an amazing story.
In terms of budgets, Jakub, at least a few weeks ago, he was linked with a move to Polish club Raków Częstochowa, and I think the fee that they were saying was somewhere around 300,000 euros, which isn't a large transfer fee in the global scheme of things. But for a club like Energetic, that could be almost their annual budget.
Absolutely, and we were talking actually in previous episodes about Jan Sane in a similar way. That Isloch see a player like that as an investment. That's why they've thrown the money at him. So because they think they'll sell him on. So maybe Energetic kind of talking themselves up a bit because actually they're looking at the bank balance down the line.
Yeah, I would guess those are kind of the two primary ways of making money in the Belarus League would be either to qualify for Europe, or to have a player that you sell off, because like we talked about, they're not making big money on merchandising, they're not making TV money, probably not even that much at the gate. So, all of their money really needs to come from either Europe or selling players.
And a lot of it, too, depends on just the sponsors. So there actually are a handful of clubs right now that are having serious financial problems. Sluts and Gorodea are both sponsored by competing sugar refineries, and both have really cut back on the amount that they are willing to invest in the club. So, there is serious doubts about the financial stability of some of them. Even Dinamo Brest this year have had some financial problems where players haven't been paid on time, and they're still one of the big teams in the league.
Yeah, I think that's concerning when you hear that even the big teams are starting to have some issues.
Yeah, and I wonder what will happen down the line, because looking at, by the way, if you haven't looked at it, Twitter account The Cold End is blogging every week a sort of summary of results, and he's even covering like the lower divisions. He even includes attendances, which I love, his attention to detail. And I've picked up
that. I've been seeing that on Twitter myself.
Yeah, and I picked up these quite ambitious clubs in the lower divisions, which I think, it will be pretty much a foregone conclusion that they will emerge. Krumkachi, I think, will probably get back to the top division. Gomel has had the second highest attendance in Belarus at the weekend in the first league. They had almost 2,000 there. In the second league, there's another Gomel team that's, having money put into it. So the money is not necessarily in the right divisions at the moment.
Yeah, I think that with the global economy the way that it is, I think that finances are going to be a problem no matter where you're at right now. So I think that we're going to see just more and more teams all over the world that they're going to be having problems because if you're not having games with fans in attendance, you're having TV money cut back. I think it's just bad for the game as a whole.
Yeah, but we were also wondering, because in England, they're talking about over 1,000 footballers out of work at the moment. And, a couple of people have naively asked, have any English players ever played in Belarus? Well, of course not. But, in the current climate where they're facing kind of months out of work, potentially, it may be a bit of a buyer's market for players, and you may be able to get players to turn out, for a lot less money than has been normal for a few years.
Oh, yeah, I think that's a foregone conclusion. I've even been reading things like, I think, they were saying that last year that Mbappe might be a $200 million transfer, and now I'm hearing numbers like 50. So, it's going to be a very different economy all around. And, I just hope that things are able to get sorted because, like you said, when you've got 1,000 guys that are out of work, and these aren't guys that were making 50 grand a week. These are guys that are lucky to make 50 grand a year. It's not like they could just, sit around and not have income.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring up it occurred to me the other day, apparently the day that the last Isloch game was on would have been the first day of Euro 2020. So I kind of had a laugh to myself that instead we were watching, Isloch. But I was wondering about that. Another nice thing about the Belarus League, which I hadn't really thought about, was that, of course, we haven't had any interruptions. There have been no international breaks or anything like that. So you have a game every week, and it's a kind of my ritual now every week to catch the game. But what we've worked out is that at the rate that they're going to run out of games before the end of the season. Yeah, because it's a relatively small league. So a league that's supposed to go on till like early December, at the current rate, they would run out of games in October.
So most teams have 17 games left, is it?
Yeah, and they don't seem to plan ahead that much. I mean, the Isloch website posted their kind of next few fixtures today, but they're only up to the end of July. So that's like 6 games ahead. And I think actually people who are thinking about traveling to Belarus to watch a game, obviously that's going to need to be part of their planning, because you're not going to be able to plan now to go in, say, mid-October to a home game or something like that. It's going to have to be a lot more short term.
And it will be. There usually are some bigger breaks as it goes on later through the year. But yeah, it has been nice to not have to worry about international breaks or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of has a rhythm to it now, doesn't it? I mean, it often happens, in, say, the Premier League, things just getting interesting, and then all of a sudden they have to stop. And, after that international break, that team that was, in form might not be in form anymore, or, picked up injuries, stuff like that.
What is it like after the third or the fourth game of the season every year with the Premier League? They go on that international break, and it's like, things haven't even gotten started yet.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody needs it, It's like, that's been really nice, but I just wonder, they're kind of digging a hole for themselves now, and it's, I wonder what they'll do. Will they have prolonged breaks? Will they finish the season early? Because, to be honest, playing football in early December in Belarus isn't very pleasant. So, they might decide to call it quits in October and have a longer break.
Well, in early December, that was when the relegation promotion playoff was last year. That was when Rook, Brest got promoted. They beat Dnipro Mogilev. They beat them on penalties. And yeah, the second game of it was like the 8th or 9th of December last year. And so it is just brutal.
I bet they had to bring out the orange ball for that one.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, we were talking the orange ball last week.
It's kind of strike while the iron's hot. And, right now, I don't think, even though other leagues are getting going again, the Belarus League has never had as many eyes on it as it has right now. So I think the more games that they could get in sooner, the better, and, kind of keep people interested. If they go on a 3-week break, I think that a lot of people might end up moving on to other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, one story that we've kind of covered was the coach turning back into the pumpkin, so the fall of Sluts continues. And what I noticed was it not only continues on the pitch, but I was looking at the YouTube viewing figures for the last Sluts game, and they were up to sort of 6,000, and it's now under 1,000.
Yeah, I saw you posted it was like 650 at one point last week.
Yeah,
and they're winless at 5 now. So yeah, the wheels are coming off of that pumpkin.
Yeah, and the kind of the cynic in me always thought there was a bit of a gimmick to the reasons people had chosen to support Slutsk. And in fairness, in Australia, you're staying up till 1-2 in the morning to watch some of those games. And I think maybe some of their sports are coming back now, and so I think some interest is waning, and it's more sort of refining into a sort of hardcore of people that are still interested. But it's still doing very well. They're still selling shirts, still selling scarves, and every day now there are pictures appearing of people getting their merchandise. So yeah, some of us will stay on board.
And I think there's just kind of a sense of I don't think nostalgia is the right term for it, but it is just so counter to all of the big leagues. So it's not like the English Premier League where everything is just so manicured and perfect, and the guys are making $200,000 a week. You feel a little bit more of a connection, that it's a little more grassroots because the stadiums are older. They've got, these great old floodlights. The players, I think the hardcore fans, you just see more of, you can better understand the players. And I know I watch my local side here in the US, and it's a semi-pro team. They play in the NPSL, which is ostensibly the fourth tier. And it's just fun, and there's nothing like it. And I think it just brings the people that have stuck around just that kind of joy.
I mean, and I'm the same way. And over here, I'm a season ticket holder for Phoenix Rising, who are the second tier. And, in England, I follow Accrington Stanley, who are the third tier. And, just kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier, is that the official Isloch account messaged me yesterday about buying a scarf. I'm still waiting for the official Arsenal Twitter to message me about buying a scarf.
Absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of the people that are following it, certainly the English people that are following it, a lot of us are lower league fans or non-league, and what they're looking for is for exactly that kind of earthy, kind of real thing that you can get close to. And I think the fact that there are still fans, there's a small number of fans in the ground. There were 2,500 for the big game on Sunday. And they made, maybe it's just that, when you watch the Bundesliga, behind closed doors and stuff, it isn't there. But it seemed like a really, really good atmosphere from only 2,500 fans. It makes such a difference.
Well, absolutely. And I was going to say exactly what you said there about Bundesliga, is that, for me, between the kind of two choices we've had, it's that this Belarus league, it just appeals to the lower league, non-league fan a lot more than Bundesliga would.
So, what do we think about the big games for next weekend? What would be your pick of next weekend's fixtures?
Yeah, Ed, what are you looking at for next week coming up here?
Well, obviously, I'm looking forward to Isloch with Torpedo. I'd like to think that we can keep the turnaround going. You get another one of the Minsk derbies with Dinamo and Energetic. That should be a little bit interesting. Dinamo Minsk maybe starting to right the ship, maybe not. But really, I think the next really big game will be on the 27th of June when you get Neman and Dinamo Brest, two of the really informed teams going head to head.
Yeah.
One that jumped out to me was the two teams that are going in the opposite direction that play on Friday, which is Slutsk and Niemann. I think that'll be interesting because it's at Slutsk, but they're winless in their last five. Niemann's won 4 in a row. So those are just two teams that are going in the complete opposite direction. And it's strange because those are sometimes the games when you see that the team that has been struggling will all of a sudden turn around and pull one out. Where do you guys see that one going?
Yeah, we could see that. We could see Slutsk, stopping the rot. And, they've still got those, good players that we're seeing them through. So it could happen.
I can't look past Neman for that. I think they have just been playing too well. I think you're starting to see a lot of the problems with Slutsk as a club, whether it's, the players not being paid. I think things are just starting to catch up with them. So I would, I'll go with the favorite.
I was going to talk about Vitebsk a little bit, actually. The interesting thing with Vitebsk, you look at their recent form and it's mostly draws, but you could look at that differently and say, well, actually, they've been unbeaten for a long time now. And of course, last weekend they earned a point against BATE, which is no mean feat. And they got this Moldovan, Nicolaescu, who is, performing pretty nicely now. I think he's got 6 goals for the season.
And he was in the team of the week this past week as well.
Yeah, and there was a nice little piece of trivia I picked up from the commentators, because they said in the commentary that they would be cracking open the champagne at Krikova. And if I could just explain that to you. in Moldova, near Chisinau, the capital, there's this whole kind of underground complex. I think it was built to be salt mines, and instead they use it to store wine. And the reason it's so famous and significant is that it's so enormous. There are like underground streets and stuff. There are underground, pedestrian crossings and stuff. And some very famous people have got wine collections down there. So I believe some of the Nazis' wine collections are still down there, like Goebbels, people like that. Vladimir Putin has a wine collection at Krikova. So that was the reference to Moldova and Krikova, and I was kind of rather pleased I picked it up.
I would have never seen that one coming, but wine collection underground below the street. See that's one of those only in Europe things. That would never go over here. Kind of getting back to the schedule here, but before we wrap up, I mean, I just saw that there's a kind of a lot of interesting games that were happening this week. Just because it seems like every team that's meeting each other has some kind of a story. Like even BATE playing Belashina coming off of their first win. Now obviously. I think BATE will probably cruise in that one, but it just seems that almost every game this weekend has some kind of a little storyline to it.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that either Belashina or Smolovice are going to kind of break out of their bottom two purgatory? Because up until now, we've been saying, no, it's not going to happen. You can pretty much write those off and just worry about the, third from bottom team going into the playoff. And I still think that's probably true. I still think, they're both, 6-7 points off of even that, third relegation spot. So I don't know what you guys think.
I think Belashina and Smolovice are blocks to go down. I don't think they have shown enough. I mean, it's sad with Belashina. They are a former champion of the Premier League. So, see them drop back down. But you have Gomel in the first division as well, and they're former champs. So it can happen. I don't see them saving themselves.
I suppose I'm looking at the Dynamo Minsk against Energetic as two teams that could really, really do with a win for different reasons. So I think that might be an interesting one to keep an eye on. With Isloch, I think, I'm sure Ed will probably agree that we were glad of the 3 points, but it was a really, really poor game. It was really, really important for them to stop the rot, but they've got to push on now, so the way they've been performing, and we know that they've had players out because of injury, possibly players out because of COVID-19, we don't know, but it's really time to start picking up again.
And I think getting Marcus back as well will really help in the attack and getting some of. I think our defense has been pretty strong. I think we have one of the better defenses in the league. I know we've still conceded more than we scored, but I think with the attack, you've really seen we need somebody like Alexander Makas helping lead that front three, however you want to look at the formation that we play, whether it's a 5-2-3 or even kind of like a 3-4-3. But that'll be huge. So I think this really gives us a chance to kind of build on the success of last week. It really was kind of a poor match. We could have easily conceded an equalizer, and I don't think it would have been unfair.
No. But we had some really exciting news this week that apparently Isloch will have a new ground. It's all a bit vague. People are talking about next season. I'm a bit skeptical about whether it will actually be ready for next season, but they're talking about a 6,000-7,000 seater ground. It won't be in Minsk itself. It will be in a sort of small satellite town on the edge of the city, which I suppose because it's Minsk Rayon rather than Minsk. I mean, I liken it a bit. Being in Nottingham here, I liken it to Notts County. They're kind of representing the region rather than necessarily the city. But that's potentially, really exciting. So those of us that are planning to go out there, we might be going out there for a stadium opening in a bit.
And I think that's what's been exciting about following Isloch is that you've seen the club really develop. I mean, it's a very young club. We just celebrated our 13th birthday, but they've invested in a youth academy. They're really trying to build that up. They're building a new training base right now, and now the stadium. So that it could be really exciting. There is a lack of quality stadiums in Belarus. And right now, every team has to play on a natural surface. You can only play on artificial surfaces for the first couple of months, and I believe the last month of the season. So you've seen all these clubs playing at Shakhtyor and Minsk or the national stadium. So it's really exciting.
I mean, Tractor's awful, isn't it? I mean, I know what song we would be singing in English football, but I won't mention it here. Yeah, it's a pretty awful place. The coach, Zhukovsky, has complained about it. So the idea of moving to a modern facility, and they're planning it broadly along the lines of what FC Minsk has, and that's quite, apart from the artificial surface, that's quite a nice, tidy little ground. That's the kind of place I like to watch football.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's good to see the team moving forward. And like both of you guys mentioned, I mean, this is a club that has only been around a little bit more of a decade. They seem to kind of be a fixture at least mid-table. And then hopefully the new stadium will help them move into that upper echelon where they can be, battling out the BATEs or the Shakhtyor from even financial footing.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can wrap up.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, guys. What did you have to add in before we finish up?
I just want to say thanks again for having me. This was a lot of fun. I don't get to talk about the Belarusian league as much as I would like. So,
well, thank you, Ed. I appreciate you coming on, and you've definitely added another layer of knowledge to these Belarus shows, and it was great talking with you today.
Well, thanks again for having me.
Yeah, and likewise, fun for me as always.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, Jonathan, I appreciate you coming on again as always. And we have one more Stevenage episode that we're going to be doing here. That'll be part 4 of the series. And if you haven't checked out the first 3, those have just been excellent. I've really enjoyed those Stevenage episodes with you.
Yeah. I'll try not to make it the Elias Chair episode, but it basically is the Elias Chair episode. So stay tuned for that.
All right. Well, Ed, Jonathan, thank you for joining me today. Hopefully we'll see some good action in the Belarus League this weekend. And thank you again for both coming on the show. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.